Imagine a man being roasted alive and cracking a joke about it, a poet bringing a bear to college just to mock authority. But these are twisted tales from a dark comedy or a fever dream. They real events, pulled straight from the pages of history. Prepare to question everything you thought you knew about the past. Because these 7 bizarre true stories are so outrageous, they almost feel made up. Or, a baboon hired as an official railway worker, paid in coins and beer. As punishment, Lawrence was sentenced to be roasted alive on a red-hot gridiron. The method was as horrific as it sounds, his body placed over burning coals, slowly cooking him to death. But in an unbelievable moment of gallows humor, Lawrence is said to have quipped mid-torture, "I'm well done on this, side turned me over." When he arrived at Trinity College, Cambridge, in the early 1800s, he was told the dogs weren't allowed in the dorms. So, naturally, Byron did the next best thing, he brought a bear. Even his executioners were stunned. Byron's act was a direct challenge to authority, a reflection of the romantic poet's disdain for arbitrary rules and love of the outrageous. His bear became part of Cambridge legend, a symbol of one man's refusal to be domesticated by academia, tasked with extracting information from captured Allied pilots. Scharf did something unheard of. He treated them kindly, and it worked astonishingly well. Prisoners felt relaxed and safe, and in that comfort, they often let valuable information slip. Sounds like satire, right? Some of his methods are still studied in modern interrogation training, and in a bizarre twist, Scharf went on to become a celebrated mosaic artist, designing murals for places like Disney World. 1. The saint who got roasted. In 258 AD, during one of the most brutal persecutions of Christians under Roman Emperor St. Lawrence faced a terrifying demand: hand over the church's treasures. But instead of surrendering gold and silver, Lawrence presented the poor, the sick, and the disabled, declaring, "These are the treasures of the church." It was a powerful act of defiance. So the next time you eat spaghetti with a fork, remember, you're using a once-banned object that literally caused a religious uproar. Her new in-laws were horrified. Church leaders denounced the fork as blasphemous, arguing that God gave us fingers using a utensil was prideful. Even her. One morning, after nursing a frail lamb back to health, she found the creature following her to school. It trotted right into the classroom, causing giggles and gasps from classmates and teachers alike. St. Lawrence became not only a martyr but also the patron saint of both chefs and comedians, because when you read getting grilled alive and still cracking jokes. Later, writer Sarah Josepha Halley expanded it into the famous rhyme we know today. But Mary didn't fade into obscurity. Guillotine crowds didn't just watch, they collected. After a beheading, some spectators rushed forward with handkerchiefs and dipped them into the still warm blood of the condemned. As an adult, she sold wool stockings made from the lamb's fleece to help restore her church, adding yet another layer of history to the humble tale. It's another to dip a napkin in someone's blood and treasure it like holy water. After King Louis XVI was executed in 1793, one cloth soaked with his blood was preserved for centuries. Modern DNA testing later confirmed it actually belonged to the king. And when the princess died young of illness, critics called it divine punishment for her sinful dining habits. When he died, he was buried with honors, not as an animal, but as a respected colleague. Rather than give up his job, he made an unusual hire, a baboon named Jack. You've earned a spot on history's most hardcore list. So he kept one in his room, walked it on a leash through campus, and even joked about enrolling it as a student. These aren't bedtime stories or internet myths, they're documented, real events that prove truth is often stranger than fiction. The administration was baffled, but technically powerless. He pulled levers, switched tracks, and relayed messages with shocking accuracy. Hit like and share if these aren't the most insane real stories you've ever heard. When skeptical officials tested him, they found he made zero mistakes. The Romans didn't appreciate the gesture. That one defiant joke cemented his legacy. 2. The poet who brought a bear to university. Lord Byron wasn't your average college student. Yes, a real, living bear. Byron, ever the rebel, noted that the university rules banned dogs but said nothing about bears. This wasn't just an attention-grabbing prank. 3. The Nazi interrogator who used kindness. When we think of World War II interrogators, we imagine brutality, threats, and violence. But Hans Scharf, a German Luftwaffe officer, shattered that mold. No torture, no shouting, just walks in the countryside, home-cooked meals, and casual conversations over tea and cake. After the war, Scharf's humane techniques were so admired that the US military invited him to teach them. A Nazi interrogator who cracked secrets with kindness and ended up decorating Cinderella's castle. History really is stranger than fiction. 4. When forks were thought to be satanic, that fork on your dinner table, it was once considered a tool of the devil. In 11th century Europe, when a Byzantine princess married into Venetian royalty, she brought refined Eastern customs with hair included, the use of a golden fork. Some priests went so far as to label forks instruments of Satan. Forks wouldn't gain acceptance in Europe until centuries later, during the Renaissance. 5. The real girl behind Mary had a little lamb. You've heard the nursery rhyme, Mary had a little lamb. But did you know? It's based on a true story. In the early 1800s, an 11-year-old girl named Mary Sawyer lived in Sterling, Massachusetts. A student began writing a short poem about the scene. It wasn't just a children's story, it was American folklore in the making. 6. The blood-soaked souvenirs of the French Revolution. During the French Revolution, attending a public execution wasn't just a civic duty, it was entertainment. It sounds macabre, but to many, that blood was a sacred relic. It symbolized justice, revolution, and the fall of monarchy. It's one thing to take a selfie at a historic event. 7. The baboon who worked for the railroad in 1880s South Africa. A railway signalman named James White lost both legs in an accident. Jack wasn't just a pet, he was trained to operate the railway signals under James's guidance. Jack was officially hired by the railway. He earned 20 cents a day and a weekly half bottle of beer. For 9 years, he worked without error. Let that sink in. A baboon with a perfect work record. Conclusion. History is weirder than fiction, from roasted saints to prankster poets, satanic forks to blood-soaked souvenirs. History is filled with moments that defy logic and expectation. Which of these facts shocked you the most? Drop your favorite in the comments. And if you want more bizarre, twisted, and unforgettable stories from the past, make sure to like, follow, and share because we're just scratching the surface of how weird history really gets. Which one blew your mind the most? The grilled saint, the railroad baboon, or the bear with a dorm room?